What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor South Africa Season 9, Return of the Outcasts, our finale recap. So this is episodes 21, 22, 23, 24, week 6, the final week of Survivor SA. So my name is Rachel.
I'm Alyssa, and in case you guys missed it, this isn't the first time that we've been podcasting about Survivor this week. We got together with some other Survivor YouTubers and talked about and ranked our worst Survivor seasons. So if you're interested in watching us talk about that, head over to Russell Muscle TV on YouTube, and you will see us talking with some very familiar faces about Survivor and the worst Survivor season. So get hype.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely go and check that out. There's going to be 3 more podcasts leading up to the start of Survivor season 43 for US survivors. So it's a ton of hype, a ton of fun going on in like the Survivor content creator community. So we're excited though for Survivor season 43 coming up, but alas, today we are here to talk about season 9 of Survivor SA. Sort of still going to go in our regular chronological order, starting off with episode 21 to get to episode 24, even though once you hit the finale, everything else can sort of be yada yada because you already have the final outcome.
Yeah, and I definitely felt like there was some yada yada this episode, but I binged watched the last 4 episodes. I got spoiled for who won, and I feel like one of the interesting things about this was even knowing who won, I was still eager to see how they got there. So, yeah.
Yeah, so we start off episode 21. We see that they get an advantage word puzzle, and then you could win an advantage for the next immunity challenge. I thought this felt very similar to those word scrambles that we've seen in Survivor season 41 and 42, except here it is a word search versus in US Survivor, it was that word unscramble. So I thought this was interesting. It's a little bit different from US, although I feel like a word search is easier than a word scramble.
I feel like the thing with word searches is also sometimes it can be difficult because there are words within words. And so it's like, how do you know that you found the right word and not just a smaller word within a larger word? So
Shane figures it out, and then he tells Dino and Marion about what this advantage actually is, where the advantage says that a euphoria tree has 31 branches. So when we get to that immunity challenge, the Euphoria Tree, that is one of the stations. It is a race out and go and count all of the items challenge, and then you have to come back and put the number of each items to solve a combination lock. So having one station completed already, definitely a huge advantage here.
yeah, I thought what was interesting about this challenge was also every time you like approached your puzzle ring, you could only try to pull out the key once. So if you weren't sure whether the answer was like 31 or 32 to be for an example, you could try 31, and if you pulled the key and it didn't come out, you would still have to run all the way back and all the way back to your puzzle board before you could try the number 32. So I feel like that was interesting and kind of incentivized the players to not just randomly guess, or if they weren't sure, to double count and double check rather than keep running back and forth.
I also liked that rule. It sort of does prevent people from just, okay, flip through the numbers that you think it is and then just pull out the key randomly. And so it's more like, okay, you actually have to count these things versus luck based. Let me just randomly pick some numbers that I think it could be based on like guessing or estimation. So I also like that rule that they couldn't just guess every single number, but they had to run back and forth. One thing I thought it was interesting, but I don't necessarily like it, was we saw Shane, Marion, Dino, and also sort of Killarney. They were colluding to split up the work on counting, and then they would share their answers and then give each other, okay, the tree is 31, the blocks, whatever, giving all of the numbers. It really reminded me of in certain Amazing Race seasons, they have teams that collude with each other to get through like challenges quicker. And so I didn't like how everyone could just cheat on the challenge.
I I'm not too mad about it just because in instances like this, you're kind of trusting the other person to do well. And so I feel like Phil ended up winning, even though he didn't have anyone colluding with him. So I feel like it's not that big of a deal because it didn't actually change the outcome of the game. And, maybe you trust the wrong person. Maybe you think that Marion is really good at counting, and then she's like, haha, I can't count to 5 or something, or like she messes up and then everyone else is mad at her. Like, I feel like collusion is kind of a double-edged sword. So I'm fine with it.
Yeah, Alyssa, watch that Amazing Race season. I feel like people might be more mad with it here if Phil ends up losing because other people are colluding and then he gets voted out here. But because Phil won, I'm like, oh, haha, that's funny. Phil beat 4 other people who are all helping each other count these things. And I wonder if Phil, like in the moment, was sort of annoyed. Did he realize, oh, other people are helping each other? Why am I the only person being left out? I wonder if he was annoyed by that, or maybe he didn't even realize that other people were helping each other. I'd be interested to know, but like you're saying, it doesn't really matter because he won, but I can definitely see if Phil did lose this and was voted out here, you'd feel a certain different kind of way, I feel like.
I feel like you could also make the argument that like the reason no one was willing to help Phil was because he didn't have a good social game or something along those lines. And so it's like, if you're the challenge beast, you have to expect that people are going to try to beat you in challenges. So he kind of got what was coming to him.
All is fair in love and war, I guess. So Phil wins, beating 4 other people out once more, and he gets to pick one person to join him to go on the hot dog reward, as well as winning immunity. So he picks Marion to go on this hot dog feast with him, where they're talking on this feast, and she is saying that she doesn't really want to vote Dino out, even though Dino is a big threat. Marion wants to vote out Killarney so people can't take her to the final 2, and that Marion can be the last woman standing.
Yep. This was a good week for Marion, other than getting voted out, because she got to go on some really great rewards. So
I agree. When we get to the second reward, that one is super awesome. So, pre tribal council, I thought it was interesting because a lot of times in Survivor, you have the quote GOAT player, but people want to bring that GOAT player to the end. They don't really care about, okay, let me beat the best, let me win and represent the season by beating a GOAT. Who cares? Let me just win. A win is a win. You don't need to beat the best person. You can beat the worst person and you still win that title and the money. And so I thought it was interesting here because people were willing to band together and to vote out that person that might be taking that final 2 chair, where if that person is out, then there's more opportunity for you to make final 2 because you don't have someone that is, quote, probably automatically going to be sitting in that spot. So it sort of reminds me of like in Cagayan, when they vote out Sarah as the swing vote, you usually don't see the GOAT go home and you usually don't see the swing vote go home. So I thought it was interesting how they did not want her taking up a final 2 seat.
Yeah, I last week said something like, "Oh, this vote will entirely depend on Killarney," and I was wrong because the whole point of this vote was to get out Killarney. So, yep.
Yeah, we were both wrong here. I was like, okay, if Phil wins, Dino's probably going home here, which maybe hindsight 2020, people should have voted out Dino here and kept Killarney around for that quote easier win this season. But, they didn't vote Dino out here, which would have been a perfect time since Phil was safe. Then you could vote Dino out. And I thought it was interesting here. Dino wants to trick Phil into not voting the correct way. So if Phil does comp beast and make it to the end, then Phil won't have as big of a Survivor resume because then the person sitting next to Phil could say, no, Phil only won challenges, but I was in charge of strategy. I was leading different votes. So I thought it was interesting how they wanted to leave him out of the vote.
I thought so too, but also I feel like that's one of those things where I'm not sure it would have mattered if Phil had had like a good resume, because his nickname as the Challenge Beast, I feel like would have superseded any strategic moves that he made, and I'm not sure that this particular set of players would have rewarded that. Even if he did have some strategy, his physical game was definitely greater than his strategic game.
Yeah, I think showing that Phil is not in on the plans, it can only help you technically if you're sitting next to him at final tribal council, because then you can say, yeah, Phil had the like outplay portion by winning challenges, but did he have the outwit portion in having strategy? So you can totally like cut him off there by saying, no, I had the strategy. Some people don't think like, oh, challenge beast should win the game, but you need to be good at challenges, but also you have to have that strategy. And also, they didn't think Phil and Killarney would be voting together. They were thinking Phil and Killarney would split votes and vote in two separate ways. But because Phil and Killarney did vote together here, technically didn't really matter that they're tricking Phil into voting a certain way, because Shane would be the split vote, because it would be 3-2 or 2-2-1. So I guess in the end, it didn't really matter, but I thought it was fascinating that you see, okay, let's trick someone into voting a certain way so we can cut them off at Final Tribal if they make it.
Yeah, it was. I liked a lot of the like strategy that they did in Final Five and Final Four, so it was cool to see.
Yeah, and I thought here also Marion coming up with this lie saying, oh, at Outpost, Dino, you got an extra vote and you got to steal the vote with your save the date advantage. Marion coming up with all of these fancy like tribal council shows for people to show, oh, I'm coming up with all of these like fake advantages, showing the jury that I am trying to play the game. And so I thought that was interesting because she was going to pretend that someone, Dino, stole her vote so that she couldn't vote with Phil, and then maybe the next time she and Phil could pretend to be good together, and then Phil would be blindsided when he would get voted out.
Yeah, I thought that whole strategy, it was a little bit over the top. I didn't think it was necessarily necessary, but it was fun to watch. It worked out the way that they hoped that it would work out. So
I wonder if like the jury or Phil realized that this is not how a steal the vote would have worked, because usually if you're stealing a vote, you would have to get up to the host before they're like, okay, you can go and vote. So you would have to announce before anyone goes to vote that, yeah, I'm stealing your vote, Marion. So I wonder if anyone noticed, like, you don't just steal the vote when you go to the urn, but you had to announce it. So then maybe people would call it out as fake, that, oh, usually you have to say before we go vote.
I feel like it probably didn't matter. I mean, Phil was fooled because he starts the next episode, or I guess the post tribal council, by saying like, "Oh, Marion's too pissed off with the other two to want to work with them." So
I
I
feel,
think,
yeah, a super fan, I feel like Dino maybe would have noticed. Phil has been voting some weird ways these past few episodes, so yeah, didn't notice.
yeah.
But get to tribal council. It was sort of weird because we got to tribal council 20 minutes into the episode. I was like, oh, this is either going to be like a really hectic tribal council, but it was really short. It was just like a regular tribal council, and Killarney gets voted out. But I was like, this is so whiplashy because the pacing is not usually how the pacing goes for Survivor episodes.
Yeah, it felt very strange the way that they decided to split up all the different episodes, because they tried to make cliffhangers where it didn't need to be cliffhangers. I feel like these 4 episodes could have been 3 episodes or 2 episodes. Like in Survivor US, going from like the final 6 to the final 3 is in one double long episode. So it felt kind of strange in this one that they went from final 5 to final 2 in 4 hour long episodes. So yeah, the pacing was a little off.
Yeah, this first episode was still only 44, 45 minutes, but because we got to a second reward challenge here, I was like, oh my God, this feels like it's an hour and a half. It is totally dragging because usually you end at tribal council, you don't get multiple challenges like this. So at the end of this first episode of the week, we start the reward challenge, which ends in a cliffhanger, but they have to compete in pairs. They have to drop this spool and it goes through the little maze, and then they have to catch it at the end, adding more spools periodically. Very much like Samotion from US Survivor, but I feel like Australian Survivor does a lot of challenges like this that is also similar to Samotion, but more physical because you have to run up and down stairs.
Yeah, this one was interesting because it seems like they also intentionally put them in a muddy area. Because when they were running back and forth, there was like basically this mud pit that eventually decided the fate of the game. So I'd like that it was more physical because, again, it made it more of a physical game than just a mental game. And I also really liked that this was a partner game just because I feel like a lot of times on Survivor US, we also will see it as a solo thing where someone has to like time themselves basically, but having it as a partner was a cool twist.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because then you see people, okay, can they work together well or are they fighting about the timing? Both pairs, Phil and Dino as a pair, Shane and Marion as a pair, work together pretty well. No like fighting or anything. And yeah, I feel like they had to put the mud there on purpose because there's no way both things just happen to have mud there. If one had it there and the other didn't, it would be sort of unfair because it's a slipping hazard. So they must have done it on purpose to like mess people up.
Obviously.
But Phil gets to choose partners. He gets that black rock and he chooses Dino. Shane and Marion are paired together. Dino is saying, oh, maybe I should throw this challenge because we don't want Phil to get the food. We don't want him to go on the reward because then for the next challenge, Phil would have extra gumption to go and win another immunity challenge. But then Dino is like, this reward is too good to throw. So I thought that was funny.
Yeah, I thought that was funny too, but also I feel like if you're Dino, you might be like, "Oh, I'm going to maybe throw this challenge," and never say like one way or the other. So that if you do lose, you're kind of like, "Oh, I just threw it." But if you win, you can say like, "Oh, I decided that throwing challenges isn't in my nature," or whatever. So
So the beginning of the spools pretty easy, pretty simple. 4 spools got to be pretty hard, and then 5 spools seemed very hectic. That was challenging running up and down those stairs like that.
yeah.
But I was mad. They ended on this stupid cliffhanger. I was like, I just want to see who gets to go see the animals.
Yeah, yeah. The cliffhanger was stupid, especially because I felt like it was kind of obvious who was going to lose based on where they put the cliffhanger, but maybe that was just me.
Yeah, maybe. I was like, okay, I'm done. They did this last week with a cliffhanger in the middle of a challenge. I was like, I'm done. I can't blacked out of my mind. It's not in there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to episode 22 and cliffhanger resolved. Shane and Marion win the reward. This is such an epic trip. Honestly, they get to go on a helicopter ride and then they get to go to this nice hotel, a safari drive, 5-star hotel. They get to see rhinos and a ton of other animals. I'm like, this is an awesome trip.
Yeah, it was a really awesome trip, but it also kind of ended on a sad note because one of the rhinos that they saw was being dehorned, which is basically just when they cut off the horn of the rhino so that poachers won't kill the rhino for its horn. But I just like it was a cool thing, but then also to see the rhino getting dehorned was kind of sad.
Yeah, this like the rhino talk is very serendipitous because this was Tuesday's episode. On Monday, I'd listened to a podcast where they were like the podcast hosts were interviewing someone who was on like there's a documentary called Rhino Man that is coming out I guess next year and they were interviewing one of the filmmakers for Rhino Man and he was talking about his journey, the documentary that's coming out and it's literally about like the South African rhinos and poachers and like the safari park service how they need more people because there's literally not enough park service rangers to guard all of the rhinos and then poachers are coming in there. So I was like, wow, I literally just listened to a podcast about this topic on Monday and then it comes up again here on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's I forget what the name of the effect is, but it's like once you know about something, you see it everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll send you that podcast, Alyssa. It's actually really interesting.
It sounds interesting. So,
Yeah, I'll text you after. But I thought it was also interesting with this reward. It seemed like Marion was getting a lot of the confessionals explaining the trip, explaining her experience on the trip, how the trip affected her as a person and this experience and how it's changed her. So I thought that was interesting compared to like Shane not really having any of this talking confessional here.
yeah, I felt bad for Shane. I feel like he kind of got the short end of the stick.
Yeah, which is surprising considering Shane makes final tribal council. You'd think, okay, they would give him some of that talking confessional here because Marion, when she was talking about this experience and how it's changed her, that could have been really impactful for us to hear from Shane too, considering he makes it to the end.
Yeah, I feel like this arc of episodes was definitely more about Marion's downfall than Shane, which was kind of sad just because I feel like hearing Shane talk at Final Tribal Council, because spoiler, he gets to Final Tribal Council, was kind of, it was like everything he was saying, I didn't know whether or not it was true.
Yeah, I feel like some of the editing, especially with the final five, like Killarney and Shane, it felt like very weird because sort of once you see it's Dino and Shane, you're like, okay, Dino is probably winning this.
Yeah.
Alas, we get to the next immunity challenge, and it's a popular challenge. You have to do these different tasks, and then you get puzzle pieces, and then you have to do this puzzle at the end. Seen this multiple times throughout Survivor, especially US Survivor. I hate nets like this. They are the ankle twister nets. I'm like, someone is going to twist and like fall over on these like bouncy nets.
Someone's gonna like die on one of those nets, I swear. It just, I understand why they're like fun to do in Survivor challenges, but they also make me anxious.
Yeah, have flat ground. Just stick more wood there. I'm like, these nets, someone is going to twist or break an ankle, literally.
Yeah.
But Phil, he gets to the puzzle first. It is a difficult geometric shape puzzle here. Great equalizer, as it is a really difficult one. They had the timestamp at the bottom of the screen. Oh, 1 hour has passed. Anyone's puzzle to win, literally, because everyone got there. We needed the SpongeBob voiceover, like, oh, 1.5 hours have now
10 minutes
passed.
later. Yeah.
Exactly. It was a long puzzle.
It was a long puzzle, and I feel like part of the reason it was a geometric puzzle. So it's kind of hard to anchor yourself. Like with words, like a lot of Survivor puzzles have like outwit, outplay, outlast on them. And so it's like you can kind of figure out what's supposed to happen based on where the words are. It also looked like this puzzle had a lot of pieces. So yeah.
Maybe we can DIY this one. We'll get a screenshot of it.
Maybe.
Except I agree. I don't think I could do this. This one looked hella hard.
Mm-hmm.
But Shane wins. I thought it was cute. He was so excited to win.
He was so excited to win. I feel like it was one of those things where he really felt pressured to win because he felt like he was the only person who could beat Phil. So it was nice to see him be happy.
Yeah, it was such a cute moment. So the plans going into tribal council, Phil lost the immunity challenge. And so Dino says, let's vote Phil. Marion says, let's vote Phil. Shane says, maybe I'm in between Phil and Dino when he's talking to Phil. But then in a confessional, Shane says, yeah, I'm voting Phil. So it's pretty straightforward, I feel like, which sort of sucks here. Like, okay, Phil is the challenge beast. We need to vote him out because he could win his way to the final tribal council and make it to the final two and take up one of those seats.
Yeah, I felt bad, but also like Phil as a character never particularly interested me, so I didn't feel that bad, even if it was kind of predictable.
Oh, I thought Phil was funny. He had a lot of those funny confessionals.
Yeah, but I didn't like him as much as any of the people who were left. Like even if Shane was kind of boring, I felt like I liked Shane. I really liked Marion, and I liked Dino. So like if I had to pick who would have gotten voted out, it would have been Phil. So
Yeah, I feel like I'm just equally on everyone. It's like, okay, whatever happens, happens. It was interesting though here that Dino is like the swing vote. I was surprised that, okay, maybe Dino and Phil could have worked together again. Why are you leaving Shane and Marion in the game together? That could potentially be dangerous going into the final three situation. Phil and Dino are maybe going to team up and send Marion to fire to go against Phil, the fireman. So I thought this was interesting. It ended up not working out. And maybe in the moment as a viewer, you're like, oh, Dino, that maybe is not the best move. Like, why are you bringing Shane and Marion to final three? But obviously, we see how it works out for Dino. And so for Dino here, not going back to the No BS Alliance works for him. Although not going back to the BS Alliance for Phil doesn't work for Phil.
Yeah, poor Phil. I mean, I feel like it was kind of difficult for Dino to lose once Killarney got voted out. So good for Dino.
Which is so odd because I feel like Alyssa, for us as viewers, we're like, wow, whoa, you know, why is no one voting Dino out? Why is no one voting Marion out? They're the front runners to win the game. And so I think that just goes to show like Dino was doing something right, playing down that threat level, having those social relationships that people wanted to go to Final 3 with him. Because last week I was like, Dino is out Final 5 or Final 4. There is no way he's making it to the end.
I feel like we're like Dante. Dante keeps being like, oh, vote out Dino, vote out Dino. But I don't know. I feel like it's hard for everyone because they don't want Dino to go to the end. They don't want Marion to go to the end. And then they also don't want Phil to go to the end. Or they want to get Phil out when they have an opportunity to get Phil out. So if Phil had lost at the final 5 immunity challenge, I think things would have been very different. Or maybe not. So
Yeah, Phil lost that Final 5. I feel like maybe Killarney still goes next because people were like, okay, let us have the best players make it to the Final 3. Let's have the best players make it to the end. And so maybe they still decide to vote Killarney out. But I do wonder if we see like Shane and Marion team up and vote Dino out at Final 4.
That could work. Yeah, I could see doing that. I guess also part of it is Marion said that she would bring Dino with her to Final 2, and I'm not sure if she just means if she had to choose between Dino and Shane or in general. So that also makes it complicated.
Yeah, so Tribal Council here, Dino and Phil just agreed to vote for each other, which is sort of weird. Like, okay, Phil, you're not going to like fight more. You're going to let Shane and Marion decide who goes home, which like Phil is probably going to be you in this case. So I felt like it's weird that they were just, yeah, okay, let's vote for each other. Phil isn't going to fight a little bit more then. And Tribal Council got a little bit like dirty here because Marion's skin condition was brought up as like, okay, she might use that as strategy or as a story at the end of the game. And I think really, really good for Marion. She stood up for herself there and she said, no, like I've never used this as a story here. I'm not going to bring that up if I make it to the end of the game. So really good for her. I was glad that she stood up for herself when people are saying these things.
Yeah, I feel like it made me uncomfortable because like people have been talking about Marion's skin like a lot this season. Like Tony also brought it up, and I think it was the subject of like 2 different episodes when Marion and Tony were still on the same tribe. And it's just like it didn't need to be as big of a deal as people made it, and that just kind of it was kind of icky.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like everyone, like the viewers, are saying, "Oh, we hate when someone has a sob story at the end." Okay, like Jeremy or Adam, those are the 2 main people. A lot of people say, "Okay, we don't like their win because of that. They just pulled this story out at the end," which I think Alyssa and I are on the same page here. That's not, the case for why they won the game. They didn't win just because that they had that story, but like they had something that was in private. They didn't share it with other people, or Adam shared it with Jay, but they didn't share it with like a ton of people. Versus like Marion and her story, it's something that everyone can see. So it just, you're going to pick on someone and pick on this thing that, like Marion has said, her mental health has been so bad after she was diagnosed with vitiligo coming into this season and having a lot of like suicidal ideation. And so to pick on someone for that and like to go into that weakness of theirs is just really, gross.
Yeah.
So, Tribal Council, the jury was really, really excited when Shane comes in, showing that he won that immunity necklace. Phil is saying Dino has an in with the jury because he got an advantage from Tony. He's getting this advantage from another tribe. I thought Phil had a good argument here at Tribal Council. Like, yeah, why are people keeping Dino in? Dante has said it for so long. Why is Dino in? Phil here is saying, yo, Dino literally has so many people on the jury. Why are you going to let him get to the end?
Yeah, and I guess it's one of those things where, like I said earlier, people think it's crazy that they're keeping Dino in, but it's weird to me that everyone knew that they couldn't bring Marion to the final two, and like Marion basically found out that the only way she could have gotten to final two is if she won that challenge. But people don't feel the same way about Dino, and so I'm just still kind of confused by that.
Yeah, Phil is basically saying here that Dino pre-gamed hard preseason, which is seemingly the case based off of like preseason interviews. Like a lot of people said, yeah, Dino is the person that I want to see on this island. So I do wonder like how much pre-gaming happens preseason for this returnee cast.
It's hard to tell just because, like, at least with returnee casts, it's like how much of it can you call pre-gaming and how much of it can you call like just having relationships with other people? Because it's like 4 of the final 5 were from the same season. And would you say that they all got there because they pre-gamed their relationships with each other, or would you say that they just like happened to know each other? So
Guess we got to see in exit interviews if people start to spill the tea online. I feel like, after Winners at War, there's a lot of tea spilt on certain preseason alliances that came into the game and then sort of messed other people up at the tribe swap. So it will be interesting if any tea is spilt after the season of who pre-gamed and what kind of alliances came into this game pre-show.
yeah, and I guess we'll see.
So I thought Phil and Dino both had good arguments at this tribal council. Phil gets voted out, and everyone is saying Marion probably beats everyone else in the game. Going into episode 23, we see this final immunity challenge, and they get someone from home coming running out from the bushes behind them. I thought this was a really sweet moment.
It was so sweet just because we didn't expect it. They obviously didn't expect it. They're all like looking over to the side, waiting for their loved ones to come out, and then their loved ones come out from behind them. It was so sweet. It was so happy.
Yeah, so Dino's fiance came out, Marion's mom, and then Shane's friend. Shane, I thought this was also funny, says to his friend Jeremy, Dino won a car. And then Jeremy's like, oh my God. So I wrote in my notes, I wonder if this car thing is going to be used against him at Final Tribal Council. We see it play out. Dino technically officially breaks the car curse. Sure, you can say Rob from Survivor SA won a car, but it was like a 1-month lease on a car, so it's not really like winning a car to keep. So I guess you would say Dino officially broke that car curse.
Yes, good work for Dino.
Dino's winning everything. He's got a good luck here. So the final immunity challenge, it is a huge contraption challenge. I thought this was a pretty cool setup. It was very big. You have to hang onto this rope over the water, and then it gets increasingly difficult when Nico pulls the lever to make it more straight up and down. It's an endurance challenge, which I always love these kinds of endurance challenges, except I feel like this is a little bit more unfair because it requires upper body strength, which might be more hard for like a woman to win.
Yeah. Yeah. It would have been cool if there had been like a counterweight or something, or like something that required active participation from them. But I don't really like endurance challenges, but that's just me.
I feel like the final immunity challenges from Australian Survivor are like pure endurance. It's a test of willpower and mental strength. Those ones are really cool to watch to see how far people push themselves, like 4, 5, 6 hours. Don't see that in US Survivor anymore. They aren't doing those kinds of endurance challenges. So I do like to see, when it's something where it's just in your head, it might hurt a lot, but it's a fair game. Everyone can do it no matter their size or anything like that. Then that is interesting to see who wants to go and wants to win that final immunity challenge to make it to the end of the game versus like this one, because it does require upper body strength, at least a little bit to hang on to that bar. I feel like it's a little bit more unfair than just a pure like stand on some pokey sticks.
I would have liked the I always forget what this one is called, but the one where they have to sit underneath a cage in the water as the tide comes in, and then they have to like it's basically like mentally telling themselves that they're not going to drown, and they like make the breathing tubes. You know the one I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would have liked that one because it kind of has some of the same elements where it's like endurance-ish. It's all in your head. There's the water element because Nico seemed really excited about the water dripping on them. So
yeah, it's like it's just fun to watch because it's different from US Survivor. And US Survivor for these final immunity challenges recently, they're like big, okay, running up and down a bunch of stairs kind of thing, which not everyone is that physical. So having these challenges where it's just like stand on something, put your hand on something and see how long you can go for, then it's I feel like anyone could win it because you just have to have that willpower, which I find very interesting.
mm-hmm.
So, like we just mentioned, Marion is the first one to drop, probably has the least upper body strength, unless you're someone that is like working out your arms a ton. So, it goes down to Dino and Shane, where then Shane drops and Dino wins. So, good for him. But also, I was like, oh, this is really sad. The loved ones of these other people are just like awkwardly there and like also crying because their person didn't win.
Yeah, and Dino winning kind of sets up the rest of what happens. I feel like Dino, as soon as he wins, he knows who he's going to bring with him to Final Tribal, and that kind of seals up the rest of the episodes. So it was kind of boring, I feel like, from this point on.
I guess I thought there's some like drama and tension about Dino like telling his fiance, I can't beat Marion, I need to bring Shane to the end, and then his fiance sort of giving him like the okay, like you got to do what you got to do, you have to break that promise because we're like number ones in real life.
I feel like that was more hammed up than it really was. Like, I feel like even if people like to believe that they would choose their like number one in the game, they want to win $1 million. I feel like Dino kind of stuck with that story as a way to get himself like not pity, but a way to excuse the fact that he turned on someone who he had kind of said he would bring to the end with him. Because it's like if you tell someone the whole game, like, oh, we should go to the end together. Oh, it would be such like a respect to the game if like two amazing players got to the end together, and then you turn around and vote them out. Like that does make you look like a coward. That does make you look like you're not confident in yourself in the game that you played. So
yeah, I feel like maybe it could be a mix of both. I feel like Dino seems like the kind of person where he would want to pick his fiance over like anyone else. And it seems like, they have a really, really deep connection where even though he's saying, yeah, like my fiance gave me the okay, it's probably also like really hurting him to have to vote Marion out here and go against that promise to do what's best for him. And I feel like that's a big like theme that we heard at Final Tribal Council, where Dino is basically going from like, I'm not confident in myself to, okay, I'm confident and I'm going to make this move that's the best for me, that's the best for my family and loved ones back at home.
mm-hmm.
So we see Shane, he's saying, oh, I'm not going to throw Marion under the bus. Dino's going to do what Dino's going to do. And then Dino sort of says in a roundabout way to Marion, yeah, I'm going to be taking Shane to the Final Tribal Council, even though he didn't really say those words, which I guess it was good that he was telling her and not continuing to lie to her face after he made that decision of wanting to vote her out, rather than blindsiding her at the Tribal Council.
Mm-hmm. I guess it's just, I don't think his way of saying it was even roundabout. He was basically just like, I need to take care of my fiance and I don't think I can beat you. So.
Which I thought that was interesting considering how much this season we've heard representation for the season, you need to go against the best, all of that. And then Dino is sort of going back against that, where you think, okay, when we see Dino and Marion constantly talking at Tribal Council and to each other about this representation, about potentially going to the end together, and then to not have that storyline play out, it's like, oh, that's interesting that like the production and editors were building up that storyline and then now sort of making Dino look like a villain because he's going against that storyline.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just it felt uninspired to me. Even if it was like storylines, like I feel like part of the problem is they gave Marion the best storyline, I feel like, this whole season. And they gave her the best storyline in like the 3 episodes that she was in. So it just felt kind of like she was the fallen angel, and I get that that's the storyline that she was given, but it still felt like she got way more screen time, way more everything than either Dino or Shane. So her not getting to the final tribal just felt bad.
I like that tribal council though. Marion was dragging Dino. I love it. She was not going out without a fight, saying that Dino isn't confident enough to sit next to me at final tribal council. I was like, okay, yes, continue to fight for yourself, even though Dino said, hey, I'm probably not going to pick you to go to the end with me. And then I thought it was interesting also how even though Marion was dragging Dino like that, Dino spun it around saying, Marion, you're so great. I can't sit next to you. I was wondering, though, how the jury might feel about that, if they would be angry at Dino for going against Marion, or if they'd think, okay, Dino, that's smart. You won't win against Marion, so you have to do what you have to do.
I feel like it's one of those things where people say, like, oh, we're not going to reward someone who just drags a goat to the final tribal council, but that's exactly what they're going to do, because your alternate choice, at least when there's a final 2, is to vote for the goat. And I feel like one of the only defenses of Final 3 as a format is that you can get 2 worthy players in the final, even if there is a GOAT. So,
Which, I don't know, I feel like for me, I prefer final 2s, but yes, you could have a final 2 where like one person is really great and one person is not. But when we're seeing this final 3 format, especially in US Survivor, it's usually down to 2 people anyways, and like one person is like the awkward person sitting there. So I think this tribal council is really interesting. It was very tense. There was so much drama and emotion. I like the final 2 here because we had so many votes that were just pure Survivor. There was no fire making challenge, none of that. And so here with the final 2, 5, 4, 3 are all straight Survivor votes. You have to play the game. There's no advantages.
yeah. It's what it is.
So at the end of this episode, we get to final tribal council. They start their opening statements. Shane is calling out the jury members, saying his love for them. He got that sappy music in the background. Dino is talking about that story from self-doubt going through the game. And then he pulls out Shona's fake idol. So finally comes up. No one ever played it, but he pulled it out here at the start.
Yeah. I feel like this final tribal council in general was a lot nicer than I was expecting. Like, I feel like everyone like had something positive to say about the 2 people sitting on the opposite side, which I wasn't necessarily expecting. So
yeah, I think some stuff that stood out to me, Dante was really, really nice. People thought, okay, maybe Dante wouldn't want to vote for Dino because of everything he said, but Dante ended up voting for Dino at the end. So he respected that even though Dante kept on saying, get this guy out, Dino outlasted everyone. I thought Meryl's question to Dino was interesting, asking Dino about his demeanor. That was something that I wanted to know too, like how Dino is able to get people on his side, is able to act very meek and get people to like or underestimate him, and just like those little things to make him appear smaller and weaker, like she mentioned, like the shrinking the shoulders so people don't take you as seriously. So I thought that was really fascinating.
that was a fun question. I liked the question also about like a time you played with your heart over your head, just because I feel like Dino's whole thing was the fact that he had to choose his head over his heart for choosing Shane over Marion. So it was nice to see that he did sometimes play with his heart and not with his head.
Yeah, Tajan's question also was surprising. He was saying, oh, I'm maybe leaning to vote Shane because Dino, the car thing, you took the car and you didn't bring me on that reward. Tajan said, I was begging you. Why didn't you choose me? And I was like, dang, that is rough because for Alyssa, we talked about it in that episode where Dino didn't pick Tajan. We were like, okay, that's sort of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, if you pick him, other people might just beg and be brought to rewards later on. But if you don't pick him, that could be a big enough grudge for Tajan to not vote for you at the end.
Yeah, and I guess we talked about this, I think, either last week or 2 weeks ago, about whether or not it was the right choice for Dino not to bring Tajan. And so it was kind of nice to see that wrapped up. I thought Dino's answer was good as well.
Exactly, which didn't end up affecting it because Tajian did vote for Dino at the end, so wasn't so mad about that car reward or not winning the car. And so I feel like a lot of the final tribal council, it was Shane's story about growth from being so ruthless his first season, stealing idols, and now like having love, not being able to be so cutthroat because he loves everyone on this season. And then Dino's story was a lot of like having self-doubt at the beginning to being more confident now.
Mm-hmm.
So the questions, like you said, were too nice. We needed some mean ones in there. Maybe not mean, but like hard questions to make people squirm and to really think about their answer.
I feel like a lot of people came into this final tribal knowing who they wanted to vote for, though. And I feel like things generally get uglier when people hold grudges and then when people don't know who they're voting for. But I feel like everyone kind of knew that Dino was going to win over Shane, and so there wasn't really a reason to drag them through the mud.
Yeah, I guess so. It seemed like some people were maybe on the fence about it. I guess if they post like jury speaks videos, that would give more insight to whether people were like actually on the fence about it or if they're just saying they're on the fence about it at Final Tribal Council. But Nico goes and he reads the votes. He brings in more loved ones, more than that were just at the challenge, which I thought was very sweet. Australian Survivor also does this where they bring loved ones for the final vote reading. And so then Shane does get his mom to come out there.
Yeah, I wondered about that, but I didn't care enough to devote extra brain cells to it.
I thought this was awkward though with the reading of the votes. Shane looks sort of defeated already, like he knows what's up, sort of sad, disappointed face. And it's also awkward. You're going to lose in front of your friends and family like that. Okay, yes, it's a game. One person wins and one person loses. But I feel like if I were the loser, I wouldn't want anyone I know there because it'd be so awkward, sad.
Yeah, but also like when you think about it, that happens on US Survivor too, where the family members are all in the audience. So it just
Yeah.
is part of it.
But I feel like with at least US Survivor, when they would read the votes months later, they already know who's the winner and who's not.
Sometimes.
So you don't have that like, okay, I literally just finished this game, my mom and friend come out here and then you lose the game. I'm like, yeah, that's so awkward, but someone has to win and someone has to lose. That's the way life goes. So Dino wins 7-2, where Killarney and Steffi were the only two people to vote for Shane. Everyone else, the 7, voted for Dino.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much more to say other than that statement of fact. I feel like we said last week, if Dino or Marion got to the final 2 without the other person, they were going to win. That is exactly what happened. So
Literally, I think we've said that for like the past 3 weeks now. So I guess breaking up the No BS alliance didn't really matter in the end, for Dino at least. For Phil and Felix, maybe not sticking to the No BS alliance hurt them because they didn't make it to the end of the game, which I was honestly really surprised about. Going into Final 5, I did not think Dino had a path to the end, so it was surprising, but it's really good for Dino. Honestly, that is every super fan's dream, to go from maybe not having the best experience your first time because you didn't meet your expectations and you got voted out early, to coming back on this returnee season and blasting people out of the water and then winning the game. I was like, that's so awesome. Like, that is every fan's dream.
yeah, and I feel like Dino was a good winner. Like, even if he chose someone safe to go to in Final Tribal Council, like he still did enough in the game that I don't feel bad about him being the winner.
Yeah, Dino gives very much Adam Klein energy to me. I'm like, every super fan's dream. You want to be Adam winning your first time. If not, you want to be Dino to come back and win your second time.
Yeah.
So we got to this reunion show. I liked how they did this. It seemed like they gave the people 24 hours between the votes being read to go shower, sleep, get changed, probably talk to their loved ones and family members, maybe debrief a little bit with some of their castmates, not like the US Survivor reunion show where recently they'd just been like, read the votes. Okay, here's pizza and alcohol. Now sit down and let's talk, while the final 3 are still like reeling from the game and what just happened. So where it's awkward that they read the votes and the family members there for the losing member, it's even more awkward for the losing 2 finalists in US Survivor to have to sit at the reunion show after they just lost.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little better, but it's still kind of like I definitely prefer when it's a much longer wait and the people kind of like have time to put weight back on themselves for one thing. Like I feel like Shane especially looked very slim. And so I feel like I would have liked to see him in like 3 months when he was like healthy, feeling better and all that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess a good thing maybe about having the reunion sort of directly after the show just ends is that people can't have like rewrite history where okay they see the fan reaction for an episode or the fan reaction to them and then they change their tune when they go to the reunion show. So here it's more raw, but the downside of that is that nobody really has had the time to process in US Survivor or here 24 hours after. It's such a quick turnaround that you probably don't have those in-depth, well thought out answers because they didn't have that long time to process.
Yeah, I guess it's just one of those things where people do need time to process, especially if you're the loser. So I understand not wanting like historical revisionism or whatever, but I feel like there's a line.
Yeah, I guess before the season airs. But I thought it was funny that some of the questions about like Dino telling everyone how much he won. He won the car, he won the game, he won this vacation, and everyone was like, geez, what the heck?
Yeah. I just I wonder if people would have voted differently if they had also known about the vacation because like you don't want to like say that someone's financial situation changes the way you vote, but it does seem kind of unfair that Dino got like so much out of this season.
He got like all the best things. And then if like he went on the Rhino reward, he would have literally had all of the best ones.
Yeah.
So I liked the questions Nico was asking though at this reunion. I felt like it was actually questions and answers that I wanted to hear about. It cleared some things up. They got to talk about the fake idols with Seamus and Shona. So it's really cool to see that, okay, someone thought of these questions and these are actually good questions that probably fans want to know about rather than just asking stupid questions that no one cares about.
Yeah. And there was no audience, so no one could like ask the audience members a stupid question.
Yeah, kid, who do you think will win? Write it on my back.
Yeah.
So I think overall, I really enjoyed this season. I think the one downside would be the 4 episodes a week. Sort of sometimes, if you have a busy week, it can feel like very much a drag or a chore to get through all 4 episodes, especially like Alyssa and I talking about them on Friday night or Saturday night. You really have to get through them quickly. So I would feel like it would make sense. And it seems like for SA, like ratings were really, really down this season. But if they were to do like 24 episodes, maybe you shorten it to 20 episodes and instead of 4 a week, you split like 2 or 3 a week. I feel like that would be more manageable. So you make it longer and then maybe cut a few episodes.
Yeah. And I feel like also maybe doing a returnee season when you don't have that deep of a bench to pull from isn't the best idea, but
Yeah, I guess. Like certain returnees, I feel like preseason, a lot of people were like, oh, where's Jacques? Where's Werner? Those kind of people. But then I feel like a Jacques and Werner would be sort of in like a Chappies situation here where their legacy precedes themselves and then they'd probably be voted out earlier.
mm-hmm.
So, Alyssa, any final thoughts?
I don't know. I feel like this season of South Africa was really good. I feel like the best season of South Africa that I have watched. I still kind of wish that Marion had won, but Dino was also a good winner. So, yeah. Any final thoughts from you, Rachel?
Yeah, I agree. I think especially the editing was a little bit better this season. Some of the people of the final 5, like we said, like Shane, Killarney, maybe could have been edited a little bit better, but overall, like they edited the winner better here compared to their under edit of Nicole last season winning, where people were like, what? How is Nicole winning the game? We haven't seen too much strategy from her. So I do like, okay, they are editing Dino in the way that, okay, he's going to win. They had the fallen angel of Marion there, making it super close to the end. And she says she's won in her heart. And so I feel like because Marion didn't make it to the end, she could be brought back for another season. But now she has that legacy where people would probably vote her out early.
Yeah, which is kind of sad, but
Yeah, I can't believe it. We finished 6 weeks of Survivor essay, 4 episodes a week. It honestly flew by really, really quick. So, Alyssa and I, we will be back for Survivor season 43. Whenever they drop the cast for that, we'll do our cast assessment. So, a lot of things to look forward to here.
Yeah, and if you are still wanting to see more Survivor, like we said, we were on a podcast on Russell Muscle TV on YouTube. This coming Friday, there's going to be the second episode of that series on Flynn Masters' YouTube channel. So, yeah, there's still more Survivor content for you guys, and we will see you soon with another video. Bye!